Hi there. First, thank the organizers and lecturers for the exciting project Rethinking Gender, War and Peace in the 21st Century, Ukraine in a Comparative Perspective, and the opportunity to present my topic within its framework. After Olena Strelnik's lecture, a question arose that became a bridge to my topic. So my topic is about demographic situation, moral panic, and reproductive pressure. Let me start by introducing myself. I am a professor at the Department of Theory and History of Sociology, Faculty of Sociology, Taras Shevchenko National University of Kiev, Ukraine. For those of you who don't know me, I am not guys, not males, but Malas, Ludmila Malas. I suggest that the constant mistakes with the transcription of my last name don't indicate a new gender as a form of transsexual, but indicate a new dimension of intersections as language inequality, especially if you have dyslexia or selective mutism or other disorders. There are discussions, much research, and a massive bibliography of English linguistic imperialism. Hopefully, we will soon see the same with Russian linguistic imperialism. But some people say about language inequality otherwise. I believe this or this sentence has interest. So demographics about interest too. Wait a little, we will see the logic in the next slides. And I have to say that the illustration from media or open sources, I use it in the presentation. So, throughout Ukrainians' independence, the Ukrainian demographic situation was described as a demographic crisis because of the negative population growth. That is a decrease in population compared to the 52 million recorded in the 1989 census. Today, when the changes are much more noticeable and it makes sense to talk about a crisis, the term is already used. So stronger ones appear. Some Ukrainian mass media write the following about the demographic situation in Ukraine. For instance, since February 24, 2022, about 8.6 million Ukrainians have left the country and are not going to return home, at least until the end of the war. As a result, the population of Ukraine has shrunk significantly. Let's find out what the current population is in Ukraine. According to the Ukrainian Institute for the Future, as of the beginning of May 2023, the resident population amounted to 29 million people. Only a third of them are employed. Let's see where this data comes from. Follow the link. It is a Telegram channel. Obviously, some data in this expression is wrong. So-called UIF writes so that since February 24, 2022, about 21 million Ukrainians have left the country. I can't imagine this exodus. Where this data comes from? Maybe from the civil network Opora site? Because I wrote, as of the end of August 2023, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees informed about a slightly more than 5 million Ukrainian refugees. Today, the UNHCR site reports more than 6 million Ukrainian refugees. However, this is not enough for the authors, and they further note that the balance of border crossings indicates that this figure may be higher, and they start counting. At the beginning of the quote. Thus, according to the data from the UNHCR portal, from February 24, 2022 to September 2023, 24.2 million exits from Ukraine were recorded and 70.3 million entries. Accordingly, it may be estimated that since last February 24 and about 6.9 million people left Ukraine and never returned. Let's consider that since mid-October, the number has been growing, and the negative migration balance from August 2022 to August 2023 in a year has grown by over 2.5 million people. The data is well illustrated on the chart end of the quote. But look, million people instead border crossing. What is wrong? The chart gets its dynamic because it contains cumulative data. The number of border crossings is not equal to immigration because people could often have to enter and leave again and again. So one person abroad could enter Ukraine 1, 2, 3 times and accordingly leave 2, 3, 4 times. Remember the sentence, as many language you know, as many times you are a human being. In the Oporos logic, as many times you left Ukraine, as many times you are a human being. This topic is popular in Ukrainian media. The articles have different titles, from how many Ukrainians went abroad and did not return because of the war, shocking numbers, to only 2.4 million Ukrainians left and did not return to Ukraine since the beginning of the Great War. If among scientists some manipulate for the sake of hype and career gains, then what can be said about the media, which earns in this way? Look at the chart by Open Data Board, the same data, but in the correct presentation. Since the beginning of the war, only 2.4 million Ukrainians have left Ukraine and did not return. This is indicated by the data from the State Border Guard Service regarding the number of people who officially crossed the border. The proportion of people who have not returned from abroad has decreased significantly in 2023, according to data from the Open Data Board platform. The exodus is cancelled. Therefore, the calculations of the Institute of the Future are fake, and there are not 29 million of us. But as demographer Ella Libanova says, currently the population of Ukraine is about 37 million people within the borders of 1991. And if we minus the occupied territories, then about 31.5 million. But the panic does not go away. So these 37 million are still not enough because in 1991 there were 52 million Ukrainians, and this number became a reference point, a new demographic norm. And as you can see, a deviation from which is perceived as crisis, and the significant deviation is a catastrophe. We can read the same complaints in the Kyiv Post newspaper. Before the war with Russia, the national population of Ukraine was estimated at around 45 million, a decline from its peak in 1990 of 51.6 million. Today, Ukraine is thought to have roughly 36.7 million citizens. Or on the website of the Center for Eastern Studies. Also, Ukraine had a population of 51.5 million after gaining independence. In 2019, its estimated population size was near 37 million. Let's compare the two charts and see that the first is part of the second. Yes, the Ukrainian population today is more than 37 million, but in the middle of the 20th century, there was the same number and the country was not perceived as depopulated. If you look at the data for the Soviet period, a more complete picture opens up. We see that the population of 52 million was the peak, which was formed due to the overlap of numerous generations born during the times of the norm of many children and increased life expectancy. Next, what do you think about this news? Approximately 190,000 children were born in Ukraine in 2023 during the full-scale war. Is it good or bad news? Some media believe that this is bad news because the number is very small. The issue of childbirth in Ukraine has hit of headlines of international media. All these publications complain that only 97,000 children were in Ukraine in the first half of 2023. And this is a 28% decrease compared to the corresponding period in 2021, when 135,000 children were born, and even lower than the same period last year. Ukrainian sources such as Open Data Board share the same indicator that the birth rate in Ukraine decreased by 28% since the start of the full-scale war. I think comparing 2021 and 2023 is manipulated because living conditions and chances of dying in 2021 and 2023 differ dramatically. But these are far from all distortion in data presentation. Take another look at the diagram. This infographic is data manipulation for 4 reasons. The first, the scale is selected so that the indicators look too small and the difference between them is too large. The second, if all previous indicators are for a whole year, then birth rate in the 2023 military year is for half a year. The third, data for 2022 and 2023 do not include births abroad and in the occupied territories, as well as data for 2014 without Crimea and parts of the 2 most densely populated regions. And the last, the period is chosen to begin with the years of most extraordinary fertility. Also, before that, there was a period of significant decrease. So, as demographer Svetlana Aksionova points out, the percentage is we compare the first half of 2023 3, with the first half of 2022, the birth rate decreased only by 9%. At the same time, it should be remembered that in the same period of 2022, children conceived before schools full-scale war were born. We can play chaos, high mortality, and low birth rate, and we can correctly explain the current demographic situation. Small cohorts give birth, and large cohorts die. At the same time, it should be remembered that a Great War has begun since 2022, and war promotes death, not birth. So they think that almost 190,000 children planned and born during the war are bad. They write that the most newborns were in Kiev and the least were in the Kherson region. Let's imagine what it means to give birth during a full-scale war. To give birth in a bomb shelter. To raise children in a bomb shelter. During blackout, left alone in Ukraine or abroad. Not at home or without home. During the terror of Russian roulette. Every day the Russians destroy the homes of Ukrainians. Every day the Russians kill Ukrainians and their children. Unfortunately, many of those who were pulled alive from under the rubble of buildings die in the hospital. Usually the news only indicates the number, gender, and age of Ukrainians killed by the Russians. But on February 10 of this year, as a result of Russian attack, a family burned alive in their house, which was reported in many media. We can mention them by name. 10-month-old Pavlo, 4-year-old Mikhailo, 7-year-old Alexei, their parents, Olga and Grigory. And on the night of March 2, the Russians destroyed a multi-story residential building, killing 12 people, 5 of them children. We can mention them by name too. 4-month-old Timofey, 7-month-old Lisa, 3-year-old Marko, 8-year-old Zlata, and Sergei, who was to turn 10 in July. In addition to statistics, this time in the news are photos and bibliographies of these people. I believe that it is important to humanize these war crimes of the Russians for those who are tired of war and use it to the statistics of the killed. What again conclusion can we draw? Ukrainian women are the best, we will help you, or Ukrainian women are the worst, we will harass you. Most likely the second. In September 2023, the famous singer Oleg Skripka said, that is, I'm not against feminists and I'm not against LGBT story, but I am for a healthy society, for Ukraine to develop and prosper. And for this, there must be a basis. The basis is a healthy society like that of Hasids and real Ukrainians. In my circle, I have 4 children. This is the minimum. Ukrainians must keep up with the Hasids. And the general director of the city hospital complains that in 2023, the birth rate in Chernihiv will drop by almost half. Chernihiv, Karl. In 2022, the city was about 70% destroyed due to the siege. And the Wall Street Journal complains that at the biggest maternity hospital in Kiev, some 250 babies a month have been delivered this year, down from 350 to 400 before the war. The demographer told how many children each Ukrainian woman should have in order to reproduce the generations. 2 and more. In the past, it was 3 or 4. But the longest lasting alarm and harassment of women in the Ukrainian public space has so-called infanticide. Infanticide, this is not a story of tragedies of motherhood and childhood before the first demographic transition. We are talking about regular attempts to legally prohibit the provisions of medical assistance to women for the termination of unwanted or dangerous pregnancies. What do you think? Who can decide on an abortion? Yeah, none of them. But usually you can see the first picture, a woman in late pregnancy, as an illustration in the article about abortion. Usually you can see the man as the one who decides the abortion issue. Sviatoslav Shevchuk is a Ukrainian Catholic prelate who has served as primate of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church since March 2011. He wrote, in 2012, when I was a teacher of moral theology, I studied the phenomenon of abortion in Ukraine with my students. Things are terrible. During the 20 years of independent Ukraine, we deliberately and voluntarily killed 40 million children. This is the same text, but look at the illustration. Does it illustrate the topic of abortions in Ukraine? No, not at all. And 2 main sentences from the text in English. And the same idea recently. The title is More than 42 million unborn children were killed in 2020. Without picture, because the article contains not only a hype headline, but also a sensitive photo. And look, all Ukraine in the blue color. My sister sent me the link with this map about 12 years ago. It was so-called pro-life site. That site was very emotional, and this map was its main argument. But it had doubts. I had doubts about this data. I tried to discover it. Since the situation of abortion has become my interest. Abortion in Ukraine is legal, yes or no? There is no correct answer. The correct answer is rather no than yeah. Because abortion in Ukraine is legal on request during only the first 12 weeks of pregnancy, and between 12 and 22 weeks, abortion is available only on the medicine grounds. And this terrible map again, let's start to analyze, look at the top. The date of the data is 2010. But we have more recently on the same side, there is the next map. And now we know Ukraine is not Russia. The map's date is 2012. We can see the situation in Ukraine have become better, and it's the first good news. Is it a trend? We can verify it by the next chart. It does not have a legend. What do you think? Which line is about abortion? Blue or red? Yeah, red. The blue line shows the number of live births, red the number of abortions. We have a positive trend. It's good news too. The chart shows the number of live births and the number of abortions in Ukraine from 1980 to 2020. The main trend is steadily decreasing the number of abortions during these 40 years. The number of abortions decreased approximately 20 times, from 1,200,000 to 64,000. Please pay attention that the number of abortions includes not only abortion on demand, which is allowed only till 12 weeks, but also when the woman's life or health is at risk, serious fatal defects or crime or spontaneous abortion. Thus, in Ukraine, abortion is not a big problem today. It is not near as big as war, economic crisis, corruption, and so on. But where is the problem? In the 20th century, our mothers and grandmothers did not have any contraception or any other method of planning the number of children except abortion. Their history is really dramatic. But someone, especially political and religious organizations, so often and loudly talk about abortion today, when it has decreased 20 times. When the issue does not need any solution or resources, but has a strong emotional influence on us. When all these conditions exist, we have a moral panic. And we also can stop the decrease of abortion. We should only prohibit legal abortion, sexual education, gender equality, and so on. And we will get increase in illegal abortion, mothers and babies mortality rate, illnesses and barrenness, and crime. So where do Ukrainian women have problems with abortion for today? Yeah, in Poland. In Ukraine today, we still have a moral panic, which can cause the same situation as in Poland. And some words about moral panic. A dictionary of sociology defines a moral panic as a process of rising social concern over an issue. Usually the work of moral entrepreneurs and the mass media. Yes, as we can see, media is a key player in the dissemination of moral panic. Moral panics, as you can see, have several distinct features. Concern, hostility, consensus, disproportionality, and volatility. And there are 5 key stages in the construction of a moral panic. Someone, something, or a group is defined as a threat to social norms or community interests. The threat is then depicted in a simple and recognizable symbol form by the media. The depiction of this symbol arouses public concern. There is a response from authorities and policymakers, and the moral panic over the issue results in social change within the community. And regarding our topic, we have concern. For instance, Sviatoslav Shevchuk, as a religious leader, says abortion is the main threat to our society. We have hostility toward women, especially toward young and pregnant women, exactly toward women who have abortions. Most people think that abortion is a real threat to society for today. And we have disproportionality, volatility. As you remember, the text was wrote in 2012. Of course, moral panic about abortion appears from time to time, but then another moral panics appear. Homophobia, juvenile court, gender dictatorship, and now we can listen more about baby bust, demographic holodomor, and so on. Thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, write to the email address mlv_ua@knu.ur. Bye.